Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm Debra Pasquerette, the Manager of Community Engagement at the Wallis Annenberg Center for the Performing Arts. Our incredible education department is called Grow at the Wallis, and this program is one of our creative aging programs at the Wallis, and I'm really proud of this class. This is a class called Beyond Words. And in this class, students not only write personal narrative, but they also have an extra part of the assignment every week where they have to have an additional, it's a visual component. Some of them have a musical component. It all depends on the prompt. And you'll see as we go along, there's a lot of variety in terms of what people have created and what they've chosen to go with their pieces. And so they will all read their piece. You will see or hear the piece that they've chosen to create or to go with it. And then at the end of our show, we'll have a Q&A with all of the writers. So if you have any questions that come up, just hold on to them or put them in the chat or the Q&A. Actually, the Q&A is better because then I'll be sure to see it. And at the end, all the writers will join us again and we'll be able to do that. This class has been absolutely amazing. From the very first day, they have been open and just started sharing incredible stories with each other. And the great thing about today is the stories you'll hear, I didn't pick for them, they picked themselves. As a teacher, I don't believe I should pick what they share with the audience. I feel that it's a very personal decision, and I want them to be able to share what they want to share with the world. And so the stories that they hear today, that you'll hear today, is only one of the stories they created in our 10-week class. So today is the culmination of 10 weeks of getting together every Thursday morning, and it's been a complete joy to be with this group. So let's get started with the show. I'd like to introduce our first writer, Bernardo.
I am Bernardo Johns. I was inspired from the prompt, write about a time in your life when you felt your most authentic self. Sweet Emma. My God, she was tiny, could not have weighed 85 pounds. Frail, flirtatious, fragile, yet ferocious, the good kind. Her left hand was a claw, resting as usual in her lap. With only her right hand, she organized the Preservation Hall Jazz Band. She was the singer, the proprietor, the pianist, the power behind it all. She rolled in what she called Sweet Emma's chariot. The old unpainted kitchen chair had a sad, sagging, caned seat. The bouncer, ticket seller, janitor had salvaged old wheels off wheelchairs. In the alley behind the big, unair-conditioned Charity Hospital, he had strapped the hubs on with salvaged rusty metal parts from yet another alley. No money, no obstacle. Make do, make magic, make music, made world famous. The only true, made in the USA music, jazz. Tourists call it jazz. In Nolans, baby, it's jazz. That's right, jazz. Showtime's a coming. We sold out. More people is a coming. Slide down, slide down. Get real close and we'll have a good old time. The patrons scooch, scooch, scooch down the benches. Sweat-soaked clothes of thousands of listeners took the paint home. Benches nearly bare, more than a few splinters. A giant rattling air conditioner was on frenzy, rattling and squeezing the moisture out of the Mississippi Delta air. Raucous AC shut down. Anticipatory silence. Ouch, says a lady from the back bench. Sweet Emma could barely turn her humped over back. Oh, honey, is that a nick in your bones or a splinter in your bum, gnarling style? The scooching for latecomers had crowded me up against the wall. Hey, long legs, you all scrunched up. Sit right down here on the floor by me. I leaned against that vibrating piano. Alive, that music. Oh my, I was transported to territories beyond. The audience left dancing and a singing. Come on up here, long legs. Sit on the bench with me. Collecting my wide eyes and very slack jaw, Miss Emma, you have overcome so much. Any advice you have for me, I'd welcome, said I. Education, more than I had. You make them good grades? Yes, ma'am. Good. Study hard. But don't forget libations, loose hips for dancing, and love in the night. Don't never worry now, long legs. Someone's gonna love you because you love laughter and you love jazz. Gentle listeners, let's listen to Sweet Emma Barrett's version of Bill Bailey, won't you please come home?
Oh, Bill Bailey, won't you please come home? Now, won't you come home, Bill Bailey? Won't you come home? She cried all night long. I'll do your cooking, baby. I'll even pay your rent. 'Cause I know you don't never have a cent. That's a low-down dirty shame.
Now I have the privilege of introducing my Beyond Words classmate and artist, the lovely Lori.
Thank you, Bernardo. Good morning. My story is called Artist Vision, and it was written based on a prompt of when a time I felt most alive. I stepped out that fresh, brisk morning in Banff, Alberta to climb up to reach the top of the mountain with my little buddy, my sweet pea, that little guy that danced his way into the world and has done so every day since. The dance of life between play and all its challenges. This was going to be one of those days when I felt most alive. Taking that first step at the base of the mountain, I felt the magical, glorious heartbeat of the earth. As I laid each step behind that ball of energy of life before and in front of me, I was at peace. There weren't a lot of words between us, just feelings pouring in like melting chocolate into the heart and then oozing throughout the body. The great benefit of nature is when feelings pour in, they seem to be absorbed by the earth. As we continued our climb, I could feel the energy build and the body somehow becomes stronger and stronger with each step. Some parts of the climb were bumpy and dangerous, and tree roots were sticking up out of nowhere. Other parts of the climb were winding and treacherous, and so narrow, barely 1 foot could fit on that well-worn, dusty path. At one point, he reached back and handed me one half of his earbuds. This gesture is the same as hold my hand. As I plugged it into my ear, I heard Adele singing, "Make me feel your love." An excited giggle of anticipation of, where is the top? With a sudden gasp of breath, there it was, right smack in front of us. The vista of serene beauty and peace. The exclamation of our journey. I felt a tear run down my cheek. The warm, unexplainable feeling of being alive in the artist's vision. No better person to have this etched in my mind with than my little buddy, my sweet pea, that little guy that danced his way into the world through the eyes of an artist. And now I'd like to introduce to you my friend and writer, Helena.
Hi, I'm Helena. Thank you, Lori. I wrote from the prompt, when you were the most connected or the most alone, and included a defining piece of music at the end. Journey. My secret enemy is a serial killer. He steals hope, brutalizes all positive feelings, and isolates me from others. Nothing stops him but the raw courage it takes to descend into the dark basement of my deepest self. I see an image from horror films when the audience might close their eyes and try not to scream, "Don't go down those stairs." I make that journey, steps creaking like skeleton bones, miles down to a cauldron, brewing with the grief of others, the daily news, all the stink in the world steaming in chaos. Angela, my angel, is a part-time detective and my secret friend. Sometimes I think she has wings under her hot pink leather jacket. She specializes in hunting my nemesis and tells me that I have to face the cauldron and stir its contents before she will even show up. That steam can be a killer. She reminds me that this time I will not survive unless I complete the journey. I'm not allowed to phone a friend, ask for help, or lose myself in anger or self-pity, all of which fed the killer when I was too young to understand his power. I walk slowly down each step. My flashlight dims, the darkness takes over. I'm afraid to go forward or back. I remember times that the images of failure took over and I had to begin again, but I can do hard things. Angela takes my hand, and I know that life can be more than dread and sadness. At first, my voice is broken, but then I breathe deeply and a song comes from my soul. The sound warms me from the inside. I lock the basement door behind me and lead a parade of dear friends and family into the light.
Don't tell me not to live, just sit and putter. Life's candy and the sun's a ball of butter. Don't bring around a cloud to rain on my parade. Don't tell me not to fly, I simply got to. If someone takes a spill, it's me and not you. Who told you you're allowed to rain on my parade? I'll march my band out, I'll beat my drum, and if I'm found out, your turn at bat, sir. At least I didn't fake it, hat, sir. I guess I didn't make it.
And now I would like to introduce a fellow writer, Fran.
Thank you so much, Helena. And there's my jacket. The story is called The Chartreuse Jacket, and it's my response to a prompt of worn stories. Marshall had asked that we get together in St. Thomas for a short cruise to determine if we could patch things up in our marriage. I said, why do we have to go so far? And he said that he felt that it would be more helpful to get away from our regular lives. The truth is, I think he just wanted another excuse to visit St. Thomas. And so I said, okay. We arranged to meet at our friend's house in St. Thomas, where he made plans to rent a small sailboat with captain and crew to sail throughout the islands. I arrived at our friend's home in St. Thomas, and Marshall was to arrive a few days later. I had dinner out with Phyllis and David, and Phil took me shopping the next day. St. Thomas was a duty-free port, and David had inherited Sparky's, one of 3 major duty-free stores in the island. So Phyllis took me to some well-priced clothing stores in the area, and among other things, I purchased a hot-looking chartreuse jacket made by Courrèges. Courrèges had a fine store on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills. When Marshall arrived, it was apparent to me that this was just an outing. That this was just for kicks. I was horrified that he called his secretary, who he had been living with, from our room in Phyllis's house. But I was a weak sister at the time and acted as though I wasn't aware of it. I'd have had to be stupid not to have heard his conversation and realized that he was playing a game with me. The trip was a total bust. He didn't even try to consider reuniting with me. On the plane trip back to LA, he said he wasn't coming back. I said that the one thing I wanted was to have him with me to meet Lori at the airport in a couple of days when she was returning from a girls' camp in the High Sierras. He agreed and left a few days later. His parting words to me were, "Get a lawyer." I did exactly that. So I re-entered the single scene with a passion. I looked great in my little chartreuse jacket and got a lot of attention. And there you have it. So now you'll hear from my fellow writer, Nina.
Thank you, Fran. Hello, everyone. My name is Nina, and my story is called It's Important. It was written on a musical prompt to find a moment when I was connected or disconnected and inspired by a piece of music. So, it's important. High school, Texas, 8:26 a.m. The song. They haven't played the song. It's way too late. Let's wait just another minute. The first bell rang already. We have to go. The three of us are huddled around the transistor radio. We jump from one foot to the next. Come on, come on. It's time to go. No song this morning. Just then, there it is, George Jones. Now the race is on and here comes pride in the backstretch. Heartaches are going to the inside. My tears are holding back. They're trying not to fall. My heart's out of the running. True love scratched for another's sake. The race is on and it looks like heartache. And the winner loses all. Ha! We are jubilant. Let's go, run. And we're off on our own race as we duck into our classrooms just before the teachers look up after the second bell stops ringing. This is silly, we tell ourselves. We are silly, but it's important. We do a lot of silly things. Painting yards long spirit signs in the hallway after school, red paint on white rolls of butcher paper, to be hung all over the school and then torn to shreds as we run the football team onto the field on Friday nights. It's important. More basketball games, many more, Friday and Tuesday. A school night, no way. Texas dad is adamant. Tuesdays are for homework. But it's my job. I'm aghast. I'm a spirit girl. I belong to the cheerleading team. It's important. My books accompany me to the sidelines. Before the game and at the break, my head disappears inside those pages. Is the English teacher rolling her eyes? I smile at her, shrug my shoulders. What does she know about Texas dad and potential homework spies? Go, team, go. Fight, team, fight. This is important. Years later, a darkened Texas hospital room, silence. I sit next to Texas Dad's bed. The world noises are far, far, far away, not important. His eyes try to speak. No worries, I tell him. We'll make like the sundial. Count only the finest hours. That's important. Long years, my mother remains by herself in her darling, cozy house at the edge of the bustling Texas town. A life in paradise after having stayed a step ahead of the advancing Russians as a 20-year-old. That was important. Now, the house is empty, silent. I look out onto the green pasture beyond the backyard fence. 3 cows are ambling home. They stop, stand, look over at me. Driving west on Interstate 10, Texas is in my rearview mirror. I ain't ever coming back, y'all. You hear? And now, please welcome my fellow writer, Phyllis.
Hi, I'm Phyllis. My piece is called Marty the Seltzer Man. My prompt is about a place and my childhood neighborhood. Seltzer was the Perrier of the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and then I don't know what happened. The blue bottle with the handle that sprayed the liquid gold into your homemade egg cream, you bet chocolate syrup, and milk and a spritz of seltzer seemed to disappear along with the seltzer truck. Marty, our seltzer delivery man, lived on my block. Every week he delivered the bottles and then picked up the empty ones the following week. His truck had side panels, and when opened, the glistening bottles stood waiting to be delivered to the parched customers. The milkman, the bakery man, the knife sharpener man, the ice cream truck man, along with the violin playing man, all had business on our street. The street was our world. In the summer, the men who worked hard all day played cards outside on the stoops and with the neighbors. The kids played punch ball in the street, and the women talked about the kids and the husbands. I went to the high school swimming pool, which was indoors and echoed very loudly, especially when kids were screaming, laughing, and jumping up and down. Our life was the neighborhood. We didn't venture very far. We had everything we needed. We did go to Coney Island on special occasions. I once rode the Wonder Wheel with the swinging car, and my father went on the parachute jump. We returned to the block and continued on. When we got back, Marty the Seltzer Man's truck was parked in front of our house. And now I'd like to introduce Dan.
Hello, my name is Dan Oliveria, and I'm writing in response to the prompt, a time when you felt your most authentic self. A roller coaster is a curious machine. It wrenches you out of the comfort and control of ambulatory life and thrusts you into the chaos of paradox, of joy and fear, of ecstasy and equilibrium. You ride it to feel yourself inside your body. A roller coaster is an authenticity machine. I've had many shining moments of authenticity, but I don't remember them. They should be deeply memorable, and yet they cannot be remembered. Those crystalline structures are perfect and exist outside of ordinary space and time, like a child playing in a faraway kingdom that crumbles when his mother calls him home for dinner. Authenticity is without time. In the moments you forget yourself and are caught unawares by the lightness of being. The moments cannot be chronicled in language, but only pointed to by paths of words leading up to a moment and then leading away. Authenticity isn't a place to get to, but it can be mapped by its borders, by the lacunas it makes in our ordinary lives. Authenticity is the home where my father was born, but where I stand too. It's the shining city on a hill where I am lost in a sea of gay men, and I am also the crowd. It is making art that stops your heart and being peeled and revealed as you're seen in books and on memes and on TV screens. Authenticity is setting your ladder, climbing all the way to the top and pulling the ladder up after you, only then to realize the ladder wasn't real, just a contrivance you invented to fool yourself into thinking you could make the climb at all. Authenticity is real. It's how you get to now. And now I'd like to introduce my very talented classmate, Julie.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, I'm Julie. The name of my story is Distance. I wrote it in response to the prompt, write about a time when you felt the most connected or the most alone, and include a piece of music that encapsulates that experience. I had come this distance alone to think and to decide. The sun was setting. Everywhere, couples were taking turns posing each other against the palm trees or the horizon, and then showing the other the picture they had just taken. I had no one to pose against the sunset. At the table next to me was a young, attractive, married couple. They might have been newlyweds, but they sat silent, some feet apart. It wasn't a comfortable silence or an angry silence. It was just silence, no content whatsoever. The wife was jiggling deeply tanned legs and looking at photos on her phone. It was the jiggling that caught my attention, out of place as it was with the languor of the setting. When she spoke to the husband about the photos, he smiled and responded quickly. But the smiles, which involved primarily his mouth and his crow's feet, faded immediately. And when the wife was occupied with looking at photos, he seemed openly and wistfully to study her, as if she were a bug on a stick, or some puzzling species he hoped to figure out. He too jiggled his legs intermittently, and once he stared down at his wedding band, fidgeting with it. Watching the couple, I felt sad for them. I felt their muted confusion. They seemed both tacitly to understand already that this thing that they'd gotten themselves into was going to be long and difficult. I got up and walked away. I thought to myself that we, my husband and I, had never been like that. Silence was not our problem. Down on the point, waves, newly gilded by the moon, rushed at me on 1,000 silver feet. Clouds stood tall on the horizon. They reconfigured themselves into shapes over and over as I watched. Bunny, griffin, dragon, pelican, a reclining deity, Allen Ginsberg, a whale, a fleet of Peter Max airplanes, a chess set. I remembered floating in the waters of the Mediterranean with my husband on a day just like this, a few years after we met and married We smiled at each other and held hands over the bobbing waves. I told myself that in the face of all things to come, I would remember this feeling of buoyancy and lightness. But when the waves had finally wafted us into shore and our feet were restored under us as if by the gods in some Greek myth, the shorebed, which I had not noticed when we set out, was rocky and hard to negotiate.
You find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dream that you did to go, why, oh, why can't I?
Julie, I don't think we heard you because the music was still playing. Can you repeat your last line? Thank you.
I'd like to invite all of the writers back in for a question and answer session.
Perfect. A big round of applause for our writers. My birds are even applauding with their happy chirps. So, wonderful, wonderful, fantastic job, you guys. So I want to take a few minutes and we can invite the audience, if they have any questions, to either put them in the Q&A or in the chat so that I can see them and be able to answer them. But I'll start off and ask the class a question. Why would you decide to take a class that might seem so scary, like Beyond Words, where you have to do art stuff? Anyone want to answer that? Because I know a lot of times when we talk about this class, people are like, I'm not an artist, I don't draw, I don't do art, I'm a writer, or I'm not a writer, I'm just trying to tell my story, help, what do I do? So how did you guys end up here? Yes, Lori, go ahead.
Thank you, Deborah. Well, in both instances, in art and in writing, I'm quite shy. And this is my second session. And I won't say I'm comfortable, but I would honestly say it's really built my confidence. And that's what I wanted. Really, that was the sole purpose of doing this, is to become more confident in my voice mostly. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Lori. Fantastic job today as well. Nina, you have your hand up. Yes, Nina.
Well, I benefit by being nudged. And I must say, the prompts are terrific nudges. They nudged me to doors that I would never have encountered. And it was very enlightening. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun in the class, and listening to others take on prompts, just wonderful. So the nudges help.
Great. Thank you, Nina. Thank you so much. Bernardo.
Yes, I'm kind of a hyperverbal person, but a little bit dyslexic, and I can't spell. I can spell cat with a K. I've been to performances at the Wallis, incredible, and an email came about this course. I found it super useful because with COVID, being a people person, I have a lovely home, lucky to have that, very privileged, but no one to talk to. And your prompts were so brilliant, an acceptance of whatever funny grammar I used. It's my voice. And I was able to break the creative block, and I'm back to doing my visual artwork and watercolor class and acrylics and oil and trying to channel my inner Van Gogh. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bernardo. Thank you so much. And I wanted to mention that one of the things about this class is that when I created these classes, yes, it's about personal storytelling and about sharing those stories, But the other thing that's really important is the community that we create within the class and the relationships that we create within the class. And some of us have never met before. We're going to try and meet outside next week. So those of us that can, our dear friend Lori is up in Canada, so she probably won't be joining us. But everyone else that's around LA will be coming together so we can finally see each other in person. But we've created this sort of relationship and this community without ever having met, and which I think is pretty incredible. And that's happened through the stories and through everyone's words. So thank you, Bernardo. I'm so glad that we were able to fill a Thursday morning for you and give you some, and help your voice, which is absolutely amazing. So others that want to, yes, Phyllis, please.
I'm not an artist. I'm not a writer, although I like artists. I like writers, but I thought, why not? That's all. Why not? Why not give it a try? And it was during COVID, and I thought, okay, here I come. And it's been fabulous. I love it.
Great,
really
Phyllis.
do.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you found the class, and it's been great having you in class for the 2 classes. I have 2 questions that have come in. One said, Deborah, can you briefly share what the prompts were? And actually they all said their prompts before their pieces. So for example, Dan, share again what your prompt was. We'll just do a couple of them.
The theme of that week's class was authenticity. And one of the assignments was to take a picture of something that tells you about authenticity. And I think the writing assignment for that week that I responded to was write about a time when you felt your most authentic self. And some of the prompts are more abstract like that, and some of them are very concrete, like write about an old piece of clothing that you have or that you have access to, which is much more concrete. I think a few people talked about that.
Great. And I think, let's see, who else? Like Julie, will you talk about, because you're one of the people that used music as well as Helena did as well. Will you guys talk about that prompt and how you worked with that prompt?
Sure, that prompt was to write about a time that the writer or the narrator felt the most connected or the most alone, and then to include a piece of music that somehow reflected or encapsulated that experience. So that's what I did.
Great. Helena, did you want to talk about that?
Yes. I have had a bucket list for many years, and on the top of that bucket list is writing. And it's been very hard to do it all by myself. And I think these classes have inspired me to go further in that wish that I've always had. And of course, at this point in life, if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? So walking down those creaky stairs was my way of saying, I can do scary things. And sometimes I scare myself. There was a magnet on my refrigerator for a long time that said, do one thing every day that scares you. And when my son was a teenager, he said, Mom, you do one thing every day that scares me. So I thought that was my identity. So I better stick to it.
Great, thank you, Helena. And let me go to before I do that, Victoria, I didn't even introduce you. Victoria, who is our support, and she's one of the teachers, teaching artists at the Wallis, and she has been a complete support system for our class as well. So I wanted to say hello to you. I forgot to do that when we first came on. So hello to Victoria, there she is. And also, then we have another question here. When you receive the prompts, are you more naturally drawn to those with lighter topics that take you back to joyful places, or those that are a bit darker and drive you to confront more difficult issues? Ooh, that's a good question. Dan, ooh, right away, Dan, go for it.
Well, I think you and I talked about this, Deborah. There were a lot of prompts, and I was like, oh man, another negative prompt. And I realized that none of the prompts are negative. I was just interpreting it that way. because I would be drawn to these darker parts of my history. And so it was one of the prompts, and I just decided I'm not going to make this about this dark thing that I thought of first. I'm going to make it about something else. And that's what I talked about, my time in Spain, and I talked about Lorca, and I talked about a lot of stuff like that, because I realized that I was imposing that on the prompt. It was not the prompt. And so I made a conscious decision to break away from some of the darker stuff because I was just tired of writing about it.
And the writers are open to interpreting the prompts any way they want to. So, like Dan's saying, it's like, you know, and what I pointed out was the prompts are pretty neutral. It's like you are going to, you know, those things that are coming up for you. So people then make a conscious decision what they want to write about. Lori, you had your hand up. Oh, I think you're still muted.
Yes.
There you go, Lori.
Yes, I did want to add, it is scary to go to the dark, but I will say this, tremendous healing when it does happen. And, you know, it's a blessing. So not afraid of the dark, and it's good to write about it. Thank you.
Nina, is that a new hand, or did you not have your hand down from last time?
No, it's a new one.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So regarding the prompts, they may, you know, take one to a darker place, but then it always depends on how does one want to view it. You can look at it in a different light, in a new light, or, you know, at a different age. So it may take you to places that you wouldn't ever think of, but you don't necessarily have to write about it in the first way that you think of it.
Right. And I do want to say that everyone has a tendency, and I'm going to pretty much everyone, I won't say everyone, but a lot of people have a tendency to, when they write something that's darker or sad or painful, the first thing they do is they apologize, and they say, and that starts in class where people say, I'm really sorry, this is really down. And very quickly they learn that the class says, no, we want to hear whatever it is. We want to hear what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And I'll use the authenticity prompt that Dan talked, or people are authentic. People become authentic very quickly in these classes and decide what they want to share with each other and accept, and I think are very open and supportive of each other. I think you guys as writers are extremely supportive of each other. And the comments you give each other, the way that you talk to each other, and so it creates this really, I hope, very safe space for people to do either, to be whoever they are on whatever day. And again, because they choose what they share, some of them may have written things that are much darker, or, they could have written whatever, so they decide what they want to share with everyone. So, yes, Fran, go ahead.
I love this class, and I love everyone in it. And you guys are so accepting of whatever it is we have to say, and there's no fear here. It's just support and warmth, and I thank you all for sharing with me.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you. I have another, let's see. Thank you to everyone for their stories. It made me think how many things have happened in my life that, told well, could be interesting to others, which is a great comment. That's from Betsy in our audience. One of the first things I talk about in these classes is talk about a moment. One little moment can be really an interesting thing to talk about. People, when they want to write about their life, especially when they get a little older, they sit down and say, oh, I want to remember everything on. So they try to write their entire life story, and they sit down with a blank journal and they go, where do I start? Where do you start when you're 70 or 50 or 80, or where do you start? You start with a moment. You start with a tiny little moment, and you start to collect those stories. And that's what we did here, is we collected a series of moments that put together are an incredible life. So that's great, Betsy. Take our class, Betsy. I think, it's really, I'm sure you have a lot of interesting things to say. Marjorie has a comment for us. Hello, Marjorie. It's not a question, just a comment for all the writers this morning. This was fantastic. I am so inspired. And I also had, let's see, I want to make sure I get everybody. Lots of everyone, bravo. I'm a person who used to be in class, Ellen. I miss the nudges and all of you. Very wonderful, very creative. All your stories were so much fun to hear. All these stories were wonderful to hear. Such an enjoyable program to participate. And, just some great comments from the audience. So thank you to all the audience who joined in. And thank you again to our amazing writers and to Victoria. And I would like to, we'll sign off for now. Everyone, except for our friend Lori in Canada, where it's snowing, will visit us next week. We'll get together. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye for this morning. If you're interested in taking any of the classes, they'll be starting again in May. So there's Stage Stories, which is sort of the first class. Beyond Words, which is this class, and then once you've taken those two classes, you're eligible to take the sort of second level, which is Stage Stories 2, and all of those will have sections starting in May. So please keep tuned to the website, or you can also email myself or Victoria, and we can give you information on that. And I hope to see some of you in the audience in class as we move forward. And I look forward to seeing almost all of you next. Oh, I almost forgot. We have to thank Charlene as well. Charlene, there's Charlene. Where are you? There you are. Hi, Charlene. We want to thank Charlene as well, who is our new education assistant, and she was one of our tech team this morning playing our music. So thank you, Charlene, for doing that. Oh, and I have a last comment that came in. How did the writers learn about the class? Gail, we put it up on our website. There will be also some emails that go out from the Wallis, but also a lot of people learn word of mouth because they know people who have been in the class and they tell their friends and etc. So we will definitely be sending out information. If you're not on the Wallis email list, just check the website. We should have that information up by the end of next week. We're just finalizing the dates. Victoria and I will be meeting early next week, and we will finalize all of that and get that information up so people can start signing up. And so go ahead, Nina.
Also, I found it in that little Beverly Press, which is part of the LA Times. There's a little Park La Brea News, Beverly Press paper. I saw the notice in there.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know it was there. That's wonderful.
Yeah, just by chance I saw it. Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm glad it was there.
But also, we didn't actually really get a chance to thank you and Victoria about providing this very wonderful experience. So all of us.
Thank you, everyone.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do too.
I will miss you guys on Thursday mornings. We have one more Thursday to get together, but I have to tell everybody in the audience, it becomes like, it's really hard to not have the class after we've been together for 10 weeks. We become quite close. So I appreciate and with gratitude to all of you as well. So everyone have an incredible day, and thank you so much for tuning in.